we heard whispers, rumors, a new virus, people started falling ill, dying, panicking, pandemonium. The whispers grew louder, crescendoing into a storm. Localized at first, then radiating to every corner of the globe. On every tabloid, every screen, one name was everywhere: COVID-19. Sungai Buloh Hospital had never before been tested by a pandemic of this scale. We stood together, united, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, and bravely weathered the COVID-19 storm. This is our tale.
And there are two things that we have done it differently from other countries. Number one is that when we identified someone positive, whether it's asymptomatic or mild symptom, we will isolate them and treat them in our hospital. If they are asymptomatic, we also will isolate them in our hospital.
Sungai Buloh Hospital was a busy tertiary hospital which specialized, among other things, in infectious diseases.
It was on 25th January 2020, Sungai Buloh Hospital received its first case. Being a new pandemic, it was a steep learning curve for us. We kept learning and improving along the way. I knew without the support of all my head of departments at the helm, this was not going to be possible. Our hospital crisis preparedness and response center took physical form on 9th March 2020, where all vital information and statistics was collated for research and relayed to relevant authorities.
Emergency response plans were instantly activated, and we had to revamp and transform our healthcare system in many ways, in terms of infrastructure, resources, and manpower.
So we are quite prepared for COVID. And so when we heard about the COVID outbreak in China, we emptied one side of the ward, which are all first class, single rooms and double rooms. So what foresee in Sungai Buloh again is a little bit different from other wards, because it has got purely 4-bedded rooms and 2-bedded rooms and single-bedded rooms. There is no open wards. We had an infrastructure that was very good. So we had a main block. We had another block of old hospital, which is called PKKM. And next to it, we also had an hostel, a nurse hostel called ILKKM. So based on this, we had 3 different facilities available under one roof, so to speak.
The required radical transformation of the hospital, disruption of its normal services, and having to adapt to the pandemic was challenging. Building this new reality required accelerating transformative steps we had started, undertaking some fundamentally new ones, and determining which services took precedence over the others. Under the guidance of our infection control team, strict measures including sanitization, sterilization, and safety protocols were established and implemented to safeguard our frontliners from the COVID-19 menace. Cleaning teams worked tirelessly around the clock with safety zoning implemented in wards and the hospital. Supplies of vital personal protective equipment were secured. We realized that these critical moves were vital to be executed as a strategic and operational initiative and not as a damage mitigation exercise. A subsequent tidal wave of COVID-19 patients assailed us in the middle of March 2020. Our emergency department, as our vanguard, held their ground against the onslaught.
We were given opportunity to use a very huge negative pressure tent, which is heavily being used to do the training of the staff and even to resuscitate all the unstable, intubated possible COVID patients that our team retrieved from all other Selangor and Klang Valley hospitals.
the Emergency Department Command and Control Center held the fort in coordinating and ensuring staff and patient safety.
Mainly, actually, we provide transportation of unstable and also intubated COVID patients from all other hospitals in Klang Valley using our iSupport team. And finally, actually, the most important area is our clinical services in the department, in which being a frontliner and the important person that hold the gate of infectious disease hospital in Sungai Buloh, I have to agree and I cannot deny that my staff is overwhelmed with the mixed feelings of fear, anxiety, and also the uncertainty whether we are able to do it or not.
The frontliners bearing the brunt of the COVID-19 assault had to be ready as this pandemic was relentless in its advance. We were facing an unseen and unknown enemy. Sungai Buloh Hospital pulled out all the stops in providing extensive training and awareness programs for hospital staff. When there is a risk of exposure to potentially infectious material, healthcare workers must be able to recognize the signs and take immediate contingencies and safety control procedures.
Sufficient donning and doffing training were given to all nurses by the infection control team before placement in COVID wards. Training were also conducted in large scale and recruit of infection controlling nurses. Till date, 100% of all nurses has been trained in donning and doffing, include PAPR training for critical care areas.
During this battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, Sungai Buloh Hospital had to go above and beyond itself to meet the rising demands like never before. The outpouring of generosity by fellow Malaysians and international bodies, with the aid of support services, volunteers and supplies, was our saving grace and was greatly appreciated.
It is impossible to forget the amount of generosity and goodwill shown by people from all walks of life. There were ex-patients, family members, NGOs, well-wishers, corporate donors, international bodies, governments, they all chipped in to donate many things that were deemed as helpful or essential in the wards.
As the storm raged on, it took an inevitable toll on the morale of our frontliners. Our hospital director had the foresight to establish the hospital counselling services for healthcare workers who experience a myriad of emotions, from fatigue to the fear of infecting their loved ones.
Very challenging maintaining the motivation of all our staff. They had to work long hours, they were under a lot of stress, they were worried about their own safety, the safety of their families, and the safety of the patients as well.
The next step was to scale down electives and emergency cases to minimize the use of operating theatres and ICU beds. These cases, with the help of our neighbouring healthcare facilities, filled the shoes to take them in.
With the increasing in the ICU beds from 42 to 106 being opened to facilitate critical care, a lack of experienced ICU nurses was worried. A total of 545 nurses were needed.
Nurses and doctors from all over Malaysia were deployed and reassigned to serve in Sungai Buloh Hospital, leaving their families and comfortable surroundings to fill the widening gap for manpower. The Sungai Buloh Hospital ICU was simultaneously cleared and made ready to accommodate critically ill COVID-19 patients.
I still remember I was called back in the midst of my Chinese New Year leave to set up the consistency plan for my ICU. So during this period of time, we have come out with a lot of protocol from the guidance of the previous SARS experience from Hong Kong and as well as Singapore. So we come out with our intubation protocol, treatment protocol. Also, we also have some simulation of intubation in our ICU as well. So this COVID-19 pandemic actually caused a very significant physical and psychological burdens to our daily practice as a intensivist and also as a ICU caretakers. So because we're taking care of this ventilated patient and they're very high risk of getting infection. So we need to protect ourselves by repeatedly donning and doffing. And this one spent a lot of time and also caused us to be very tired. So the whole day long with the N95 mask actually causing us to be suffocated. We can't breathe as normal and we have to come out every 3 hours to breathe.
I would like to talk about one memory that I have regarding one of my patients. Actually, the first patient that I referred to ICU, and he was asking me very difficult questions. He was asking me, "Doctor, are you sure I'm going to be okay?" That night, I got a call from my team saying that he is actually not improving. So when I saw him the next morning, I had this painful task of letting him know that he was getting worse. Being a real sport, I still remember what he said. He said, "Doctor, I know whatever you're going to do, you're going to do in my best interest, so I trust you and I will take this medicine. Just please, can I meet my family?" Then I had this deep sadness inside me when I said to him, "I'm very sorry, I won't be able to have you meet your family." But we decided at that point that we will do a voice call, because I also know if this first patient of mine who's going into ICU, if he does not get better and he passes away from the disease, his wife may not be able to see him because the body will not be given to the family to perform their last rites. Sometimes we tend to forget the patient, we concentrate so much of the disease and we concentrate so much about getting them better, but we forget about the patient and his emotions around him. And I was glad when my medical officer, Dr. Kenny, suggested that we do a voice call.
Most of the patients admitted to the ICU survived. However, not everyone made it.
I have a patient before intubation and they asked me whether he can die or not. So it's very sad to actually being intubated as a COVID-19 patient, and they die alone because no family members are allowed to come in to visit them.
The disease took its toll, and the vulnerable succumbed despite our ministrations. Our mortuary services took great care in honouring the dead. Every loss was grievously felt, and lessons taken to heart from every passing on.
As a conclusion from this pandemic, I realized that we should appreciate the people surrounding us. So we should appreciate our team, our family members, and I hope that everyone can make through this pandemic alive, and the fight is not over.
In terms of public health intervention, contact tracing and active case detection, and it shows that we succeeded in terms of to contain the infection.
Sungai Buloh Hospital could not have sailed through this pandemic without the steadfast support of its unsung heroes.
Looking back after these past months since January 2020, I realized that whatever life throws at you, handle everything with a humble faith and patience, because knowledge, teamwork, and determination will not fail you.
Initially, even though we don't know the full detail of our enemy that we are facing during this pandemic area, but Alhamdulillah, with the continuous dua and His will, we managed to go through it safely as a team.
We were the first movers, we moved fast, we got prepared, and so the virus can't get better of us.
We will together emerge through, transcending this tide of adversity with victory.
It is said that the true test of leadership is how well you function in a crisis. The experiences through trials and tribulation encountered in this journey could not have come through without the collective wisdom, resilience, and support from all Malaysians in every step of the way. Currently, Sungai Buloh Hospital is operating in hybrid mode, still continuing to manage COVID-19 patients. To date, Sungai Buloh Hospital has treated and discharged more than 3,000 COVID-19 patients with the least mortalities. The fight goes on.